So we'll wait for a few seconds until ada 2-3 orang masuk and then kita start lah.
Sure.
Boleh in Malay ke?
Boleh.
Boleh ya.
Terhad
Assalamualaikum dan selamat kembali ke Fast TV. Jadi hari ni kita nak teruskan kita punya sembang pasal kereta, and bila hampa my channel ni nanti dia akan sangkut pop dengan EV jugalah macam mana pun. Dan carta yang aku tunjuk lah ni memang carta yang ada dekat kita punya thumbnail lah. Dan carta ni menunjukkan tahap penerimaan kereta elektrik dan bagaimana ianya akan, okay, basically dia tunjuk adoption curve lah. Jadi adoption curve ni dia akan, this is just for EV yang orang tunjuk, but this is or rather this is typical, but this is particularly for EV lah. But kalau you tengok the adoption curve, it looks like this, sampai dia about 80 to 90%, dia start to taper off sampai dia jadi 100%. So ni bermacam-macam jenis teknologi yang kita start ni. Okay, sorry guys, aku lupa nak introduce tu. Dia punya rabung sembang. Today kita ada bersama dengan Encik Aiman daripada Malaysian Motoring. Hari ni dia bukan saja akan jadi sparring partner saya, tapi dia juga membekalkan background noise apparently, background music apparently. Ada lagu bunyi gitar kat belakang tempat dia tu. Quite, is it from your place? I hear guitar sounds.
Tak ada bunyi kat sini.
Tak ada. Oh, then
Sedap je kalau ada mungkin
then it's my YouTube lah that's playing guitar on the back. Okay, so anyway, so cerita dia yang saya nak bincangkan dengan hari ni ialah mengenai adoption curve ni. Jadi kita tengok tahun 2022 automotif market global dah mencecah 10% jualan bateri electric vehicle lah. So kalau 10% tu, kalau kita tengok di sini pun kita akan nampak bahawa ianya menandakan kita dah masuk apa yang dipanggilkan inflection curve lah. Di mana kalau kita tengok di sini kita nampak dia kata early adopter tu sampai 14%. So anything yang the early adopters ni dalam ni lah, jarak ni towards penghujung ni lah kan. 14% tu kira dah nak masuk dan lepas tu dah nak masuk early majority dah. So up to 16%, 15-16% tu ialah di mana kita kata dia boleh gagal lagi lah, masih lagi boleh gagal lah. Tetapi untuk kebanyakan teknologi, bila dia dah masuk towards the end of the early adopters, nak masuk early majority tu dah tak boleh dipatahkan balik lah. Jadi kita tengok kat sini, dia punya adoption rate ni, ada some teknologi dia sangkut sekejap. Tapi kalau kita tengok sangkut ni jangan keliru, bukan sangkut pasal orang tak mau terima. Kita tengok sangkut ni sebanyaknya berlaku di sini antara 1930 sehingga 1960. Jadi kat sini waktu 1920 tu berlaku Great Depression, kemudian tak sempat nak recover, masuk World War 39, and then 45 baru habis World War, and then nak recovery period. So by the 1960s baru the roaring 60s come back, then roaring 50s whatever lah. So in the 60s memang dah back to normal lah. Some technology by the 50s dah back to normal. Auto industry in the 50s dah back to normal. Macam ni mesin basuh lambat sikit, dan ada a few things yang terkantoi lah. But basically bila dia dah cecah, tak boleh. So sekarang ni saya nak tanyalah dengan Aiman. You rasa betul ke kita dah masuk inflection point?
Rasanya dah sampai dah. Kalau kita tengok daripada pasaran global kan, majoriti pasaran-pasaran di negara-negara lain dah terima insentif dan lebih banyak polisi daripada segi dasar polisi itu dah sampai di satu tahap di mana kerajaan seluruh dunia dah cuba incentivize this progression ataupun migration kepada mobility elektrik. Dan rasanya walaupun Southeast Asia ni mungkin kita lambat sikit, tapi rasanya secara global tu we've arrived there lah. The EV wave tu dah tak berhenti lagi dah.
Okay. So, kalau katalah you setujulah kata the inflection point dah sampai, kita dah sampai inflection point, apakah option yang ada pada syarikat automotif tradisional? Apa yang patut dia orang buat? Adakah dia orang patut accelerate atau bergerak lebih laju, tekan minyak ataupun tekan brek?
Dia sebenarnya dia lebih kepada tekan brake tu rasanya bukan satu option lah, sebab memandangkan take up rate untuk EV ni dah sampai ke satu tahap di mana lebih pasaran di dunia dah they have arrived at the point where permintaan dah lebih daripada supply. Jadi memandangkan tu, I think slowing down tu dah bukan jadi option lagi dah lah. So sekarang ni untuk traditional automakers, legacy automakers, masalah utama mereka adalah macam mana nak cuba uruskan permintaan yang tinggi daripada pasaran yang permintaannya tinggi, dan macam mana nak handle pasaran yang di mana permintaan dia macam suam-suam suku. Macam Malaysia for example, walaupun kita dah ada growth rate yang mencecah 800% tahun lepas berbanding dengan tahun sebelumnya, pasaran kami mungkin belum lagi bersedia untuk bergerak terus kepada electric mobility. Dan untuk pasaran macam pasaran kita, pasaran Australia also, di mana infrastruktur mungkin tak mencukupi, pengeluar sekarang ni ada masalah di mana kalau nak gerak ke EV tu boleh, sebab itu jelas adalah masa depan industri automotif, tapi mereka tak boleh bergerak ke EV dengan melupakan traditional atau legacy vehicles and internal combustion vehicles. So masalah ni adalah masalah besar untuk pengeluar kereta yang tak berapa besar. Untuk car makers untuk jenama macam Toyota dengan Mercedes-Benz dan BMW, mereka mempunyai capability untuk terus membuat pendidikan ke arah EV while also maintaining R&D untuk ICE vehicles. Tapi untuk car makers yang lebih kecil, macam Mazda for example, yang telah agak lantang dengan the disagreement with regards to the movement to EVs dengan kadar yang kita lihat sekarang ni, untuk dia orang mungkin susah sikit lah kot.
Okay, so ni kalau you tengok dekat skrin sekarang, ini ialah saya sajalah buat satu carta mudah lah. Kita tak mau tengok lagi ni, tapi ni menunjukkan rate of take up, basically market growth macam mana. Kita assume 25%, 50%, 75% dan 100%. Of course, yang paling agresif kalau kita tengok dari segi the adoption rate, yang kita tengok daripada carta this one, yang ini kita tengok, most of this akan menunjukkan peningkatan yang this is 45 degrees. Kalau 45 degrees tu maksudnya 100% lah growth. 100% growth sampai sini. So they start dekat slow and then start to betul-betul pick up. Dan dekat tengah-tengah ni dia punya rate of growth dia 100% for at least 4-5 years lah, di mana dia punya betul-betul early majority dengan late majority punya adoption rate ni lah. So yang carta tadi saya tunjuk, yang kita akan tunjuk dengan lebih dekat lagi later, menunjukkan inilah basically, kalau kita tengok 25%, I'm going to assume some people are going to say 25% punya growth rate, ataupun some people akan say 50% punya growth rate selepas masuk inflection point. And sekarang ni I think the numbers range between 50 to 100% lah. Tesla pun say 50%. And although some of the carta ni kita tengok dia punya adoption ada yang lebih daripada 100% pada, but the consensus lah, yang konservatif pun kata growth of at least 50% a year lah once dia dah masuk inflection point. But of course macam Aiman kata, tahun ini dia macam pelik sikit. 2022 ni is a very strange year sebab pent up demand daripada pandemik, ramai orang keluar beli kereta, so numbers tahun ni kita tak usah pakai sangat. Kalau kita tengok tahun ni, growth dia like you said is like 4 times, 4 kali ganda kan. So that 400% growth is not going to be sustainable lah, unless it is lah, which I'll be surprised if it is. But if it is, kita tak tahu macam mana. But ni saya nak tunjuk juga carta jualan kereta di UK lah. Sebab tadi Aiman kata some companies feel that dia orang masih lagi ada masa lah, ataupun dia orang rasa masih lagi beramai peminat yang nak kenderaan ICE ataupun kenderaan yang bukan BEV, masih lagi nak hybrid ke apa semua. So they are trying to fulfill that demand lah. That's why dia orang tak commit 100% to EV. But kita tengok UK punya numbers bukanlah antara yang gila babi terror pun tentang EV punya sale ni. Tetapi for the whole of the year, Qashqai kereta nombor 1 paling laku. Nombor 2 ialah Vauxhall, Corsa, Dan yang ketiga ialah Tesla Model Y. Now, this is strange because Tesla Model Y ni dah harga BMW 3 Series and dia duduk kat nombor 3. Di bulan Disember dia nombor 1. Dia nombor 2 belakang Model Y if I'm not mistaken lah. But basically satu model EV dah berjaya pecah masuk ke dalam the top 10 and it's a very premium product. So I don't know what to make of this.
Actually, to that point, I just want to clarify. Sebenarnya Vauxhall Corsa tu, walau dalam dia punya numbers, some of those are electric because the Corsa is available as a fully electric model.
Yes. So adalah dalam tu kan so ada dalam tu lah.
Jadi it's worth bearing in mind this. Yang ni sebenarnya it brings me to a point I want to bring up later, iaitu adoption rate EV di Malaysia terutamanya akan melonjak bila ada option ataupun ada pilihan EV yang lebih mampu milik. Kita tak tahu bila kereta sebegitu akan ada di pasaran disebabkan raw cost atau raw material cost untuk EVs masih lagi terlampau tinggi, tetapi bila kami sampai ke tahap tu memang kita akan tengok adoption rate melonjak, akan melonjak.
My interpretation kalau tengok graph ni, typical graph ni kan, bila kita tengok ni dia punya inflection point tu ialah bila habis early adopters lah. So dia punya maximum dia around 15-16% lah. Masa tu dah tak boleh nak, memang masuk early majority lah. But if you look at early adopters ni, dia punya sementara nak cecah ni is about 16% of the total market. And sekarang ni kita masih lagi pada kadar yang sangat-sangat rendah lah. Assuming 700, let's assume 700,000 TIV. Kalau we're looking at 15%, that requires kita jual 105,000 kereta. And right now we're only at 2,500. And berapa lama lagi kita nak cecah 105,000 tu? And masa pada saya lah, kita tengok dekat semua pasaran-pasaran lain, masa zaman early adopters ni memang dia orang beli produk premium. So for me, I have no real concern about affordable products at this point in time. Sebab untuk early adopters, dia orang memang nak produk premium dan dia orang sanggup suffer sikit lah, suffer to a certain extent the growth pain untuk dia punya infrastructure. And in fact, the growth pain of the technology pun, because they are early adopters, that's just the nature of this early adopter buyers lah. So I understand ramai orang duk cerita tentang harga, cerita tentang charging network, but for me that concern really becomes serious. Dia akan menjadi lebih serius bila kita dah exceed the 10%. Until we exceed 10% and until the infrastructure is built to accommodate early majority, it's still not an issue because people like us will not buy it anyway. And people like Proton and Prodo will not sell the car anyway until dia nampak benda tu dah masuk ke early majority punya time period lah ataupun the adoption rate lah. So to me that is what is going to happen. So while and even as I say that, kita tengok sekarang harga kereta elektrik yang paling murah ialah Aura Good Cat lah, 138 kan, for the Pro kan, for the Pro, 400 Pro
yang paling rendah.
Ayolah 400 Pro lah, not 500 Ultra kan.
Sorry,
right?
Lupa yang dia punya naming structure dia macam Samsung. Ya betul.
Right? So for untuk orang yang nak beli kereta elektrik sekarang, you tak boleh beli kereta elektrik sebagai your only car. Tak boleh kan? Because infrastructure is not ready semua. So orang yang beli kereta elektrik sekarang ni, dia orang beli kereta elektrik as their second car, or third or fourth or fifth car lah. Semua basically the T20 lah, and some segment of the M40 yang adventurous. So basically sekarang ni the market is only for, aku pun tak recommend dekat penonton-penonton aku yang tengok channel ni untuk pergi beli kereta elektrik unless they are in the market for a second car and the budget for the second car ialah yang budget yang sesuai dengan kereta elektrik kalau dia berkenan kereta elektrik. Because kalau nak beli your only car, jangan buat gila, tak boleh.
Sebenarnya kan to that end I disagree.
You
Sebab
really?
At the moment berdasarkan charging infrastructure within the Klang Valley lah, terutamanya within the Klang Valley, if you cannot charge your car at home, sebab majority pembeli EV disarankan untuk ada charger dekat rumah, tetapi majority kita yang di Lembah Kelang ni tak mampu nak beli rumah landed. Jadi memandangkan tu, kalau duduk kat kondo biasanya ada pergaduhan besar lah dengan management nak cuba dapatkan charger dekat parking lot tu. Adalah 1001 alasan dia bagi. Jadi sebenarnya untuk majoriti pengguna di Lembah Kelang, di mana kereta 90% penggunaan kereta tu hanya adalah untuk rumah, nak pergi dari rumah pergi kerja, lepas tu kerja balik rumah. Sebenarnya it is possible that your only vehicle can be electric.
It's only possible if you look at range. From your perspective, you're just looking at range. I'm saying it's not possible because infrastructure is not there. And when I say infrastructure, it means include semua sekali lah, include right to charge. That means condo are still not compelled. Strata properties are still not compelled by the government untuk pasang charger. So all those are not ready. That's why I cakap tak boleh untuk primary car. Kalaupun you duduk kat KL sekalipun and tak bawa kereta tu keluar.
Tapi rasanya dengan DCFC yang kita ada sekarang ni dah lebih mencukupi sebenarnya. Terutamanya dengan
there's 109 DCFC the whole country.
Correct. Tetapi memandangkan kalau the basis is it can be your primary vehicle, dia boleh jadi kereta utama kalau range lebih daripada 400 km on a single charge. So macam if
for me, kalau you nak pakai kereta tu dalam town and you buy a car with 400 km range, then that is inefficient lah. And it becomes ridiculous sebab, but then again you're right, because early majority they don't care anyway, they just buy the highest range cars, you know, they've got money.
Yeah, so
but anyway, if you are T20, then chances are you can afford landed property.
Yeah, probably lah. Tapi ada juga ramai dalam M40, I mean especially within our viewers on Malaysian Motoring, ada ramai juga yang menanya macam, okay, kalau I were to get, usually the vehicle that we get asked with is sekarang ni BYD Atto 3 dengan Kona EV Max. Macam kalau ini jadi kereta utama, boleh ke hidup dengan kereta macam ni, terutamanya kalau tak ada charger kat rumah? Sebenarnya boleh, sebab DCFC boleh. Sebab DCFCs are getting a bit more common now, terutamanya daripada Gentari, di mana facility dia orang dia akan charge per kilowatt hour, which is a lot more cost efficient, terutamanya untuk EVs yang dengan slower charging rate macam BYD Atto 3, dia punya max charging rate I think is about 85 kilowatts. Tapi itu nombor satu. Nombor dua, within the Klang Valley, kita dah more than enough AC chargers dekat destinations. So macam if my EV is at 50% dan I have to go and buy groceries ke apa ke, saya boleh pergi ke satu destinasi di mana ada AC charger dekat situ. Dan sementara tengah beli barang, makan malam apa semua, 2-3 jam, next thing I know, I datang balik, kita dah fully charge.
So I agree that ada cukup destination chargers. Cuma kalau sekali pun you nak bergantung pada destination macam charger macam tu, you have to go out of your way nak pergi ke tempat yang ada destination charger.
Ya betul. Dia masih it's still not going.
So to me that is not viable as only car lah, because it causes inconvenience. A car cannot cause you inconvenience. If the car causes you inconvenience, then I think orang takkan beli lah.
There is going to be some degree. My point of view tu lebih dia berubah sikit, sebab for me macam when I refuel my car, I go to one particular petrol station which is near my house, but the thing is petrol station tu bukan, dia tak terletak di satu arah di mana I'm memang going to go. It's not off of the highway or whatever. I have to make a bit of a detour. So because of that,
why do you choose that particular petrol station?
Because it's a Petronas. No, because it's the easiest for me to pay, because I use Settle almost exclusively.
Okay.
So because of that, the closest
so
one
you
that
are looking
has,
for convenience lah.
I look for convenience satu, but also because the company car that I drive uses Euro 5 diesel, which is quite hard to find. Jadi the Euro 5 diesel, funnily enough, dia bagi macam satu sudut pandang seolah macam EV. Dia tak seleceh lah, tapi dia macam sudut pandang EV, di mana Euro 5 diesel tu is not going to be available everywhere. Jadi bila nak keluar tu, bila nak isi minyak tu, kena fikir 3-4 kali lah. Macam okay, saya nak pergi ke sini, mana petrol station yang paling dekat yang ada Euro 5 diesel. And for me, that thought process is not any different from when I'm driving an electric car.
So that's where therein lies my disagreement with you. You are projecting your willingness to suffer inconvenience on other people, which I don't think is true lah.
I reckon that in exchange for the comfort and the degree of refinement you enjoy, particularly when you're stuck in traffic kan, moving to an EV as your primary vehicle is really not difficult. There have been 3 or 4 people on our channel yang dah buat macam itu dah. So dia kata bila duduk kat traffic jam kan, sekarang dah tak ada gegar, tak ada bunyi, tak ada apa. Selesa sangat. Traffic jam dah tak stress lagi dah.
That is definitely one of the biggest plus point yang susah nak convey kepada orang yang tak pernah duduk dalam EV. The
Betul.
lack of NVH tu memang satu benda yang kemewahan yang sangat-sangat besar yang you tak boleh nak convey lah. You kena duduk sikit dalam satu EV baru you tahu oh shoot, ini memang macam mana nak dapat dengan benda tu. Tak dapat, you cannot get it on an ICE. Tak kira lah
Betul.
V12 ke V16 ke 6 inline ke, you will never be able to get that.
Betul.
Kan. So anyway, satu lagi kita nak tengok kat sini, this affordable cars dah mula makin banyak dah. And this one is from Zeekr lah, but 03, and that is expected price dia $22,000. So 22 to about 25. Yes. So and Zeekr ni abang busat untuk Proton. Jadi this is really apa orang kata, hopeful news lah. Kita tak tahulah dia akan dapat ke takkan dapat, tapi at least abang Jili adalah teknologi ini kan. Dan ini
Zeekr ada kereta model at that price point tu, dia it's very exciting sebab Zeekr untuk Geely lah, dia orang tengok Zeekr ni sebagai premium brand. Jadi walaupun Zeekr mungkin dia peneraju untuk teknologi ni, lama kelamaan dia akan trickle down dan dia akan sampai pada jenama yang lebih mampu pilih.
Exactly. And kita tengok kat sini BYD punya quarterly profit 10 kali ganda.
Astaga.
To be expected to be 10 times more than 1 year ago. BYD Q4 net profit expected to be 10 times higher than 2021. So BYD dah memang macam monster lah. This is out of control. This boy is out of control, and the reason aku tanya tadi tentang whether you should accelerate atau put on the brakes is pada akulah kan. Demand for electric car has nothing to do really with supply. Demand is demand. It has nothing to do with supply. For example, demand for i7 is 3,000 unit. Supply berapa? Tak tahu. So the demand is already there. So once the demand pick up, there will be a gap between what companies are able to supply and what the market wants. Because this is the reality lah. The reality, because this is where the disruption will come in and where Goliaths will fall lah. Gergasi-gergasi ni akan tumpas dekat sini lah. Post inflection point. So siapa yang tak boleh meet the demand curve, orang lain akan fill in the gap. And the reason aku ulang benda ni 100 kali daripada tahun 2017 ialah bila aku kata nak kena organize market ni, inilah maksud aku. Aku cakap kesuai organize market tu sebab pada tahun 2017 bila kita pergi melawat Geely, dia dah ada kereta elektrik yang ada range 300 km dan harga dia pada masa itu ialah berapa? Rasa-rasa RM85,000. It's RM85,000. And itu after government incentive lah. Government incentive lah kan. Sebelum government incentive is RM115,000.
Tapi itulah, kita rasanya
so kalau kita lambat, they will come in and then the industry will be disrupted to the point where kawan-kawan tak boleh nak survive. That's why aku rasa kita kena organize cepat-cepat because companies like Geely ni is relatively small. And they are producing EV left, right and center.
betul.
It doesn't matter lah Toyota kata orang tak nak beli ke, but reality dia ni lah, ni kat UK ni known to be motorheads, these people lah. And they've started jumping on this bandwagon. And this is not a very pretty car, Model 3 ni.
Betul.
Do you think it's a pretty car? It's not, right?
No.
It's okay lah. It's not pretty. It's not something you go, wah, aku nak. But you nak because it's like the iPhone. It just has so much of the technology that you feel like you want it. So this
Betul.
is to me
Pergerakan ni akan terus menjadi lebih rancak as we see more EV options dalam space ni, terutamanya bila kita nampak macam BMW i4 dah sampai, that's been quite popular for BMW. Lepas tu Mercedes-Benz pun dah tiba dengan EQA, EQB dan EQC, targeting the lower end of the EV market, terutamanya untuk premium car buyers. Jadi at this point kita adoption rate hopefully kita akan tengok between 20 to 30% lah growth in 2023 over 2022.
So ini Wikipedia punya peak car lah. Dulu when we talk about peak car, the idea was volume. Volume of sales. And volume of sales allegedly dah peak in about 2017, 2018. At about 100 million, and it's starting to taper off, and then kena pandemic, dia jatuh, and now they're trying to recover lah. But a lot of people say dia takkan recover balik beyond 100 million lah. And this is another idea of peak car, which is not about volume of car, but about miles travel. So dia tunjuk kata miles travel dah start to taper off by the mid-1990s and start to come down. Which means that for the majority of people, that's about as much as you will travel in one day in a car lah. This is about 80 batu. Or 80 kilometer, that's it. Maximum, and then it'll just start to not get any bigger lah. And the reason aku tunjuk benda ni is because pada aku lah, aku rasa the bigger disruption is about to come, where this will actually change. And the reason this will change is bila things like autonomous cars masuk, then this number will go up again. But as the number goes up, the total travel amount that semua orang make in a day will remain pretty much the same, because you won't travel more than 80-90 kilometers a day anyway, because that's about as much as you want to travel in a day. But the total number of travel miles by car will increase, sebab each car bila dia jadi autonomous will have 4-5 times more productivity. That's at least that's what some of the experts are saying lah. And when that happens, which means the total number of volume cars that is sold will drop, because we still achieve the same miles travel but with smaller number of cars. Right? So this is just one point of view. You may or may not agree with it. And this is pula a study by a bunch of people. Let me get their names. Aku tunjuk sikit. These people lah, Ahmed Mendef, Francis Spray and Giltal ni, I don't know dia mana. Department of Chalmers University, Gothenburg. So, dia orang tengok miles travel for electrified vehicles or electric vehicles in a household. Ni dia tengok kat California lah. Admittedly, the sample size is not that big lah, 287 household lah. It's only about 287 household. And dia nak tengok kadar kegunaan lah EV. Bila orang ada EV, macam mana kadar penggunaan dia. So all this whatever, nama-nama ni kalau nak cari, hampa tengok nampak kat atas ni, kan hampa nak aku bagilah ni link ni Ustaz lah. If you want, I give you this link, hampa cari sendiri nanti. And then you figure out lah how to get hold of it lah. Okay, so dah ada link dah. So what this thing shows kat sini, ni annual mile travel, vehicle mile travel, and then dia tunjuk mile travel for household yang ada dia lah different cars lah. So dia tunjuk ini Prius plug-in, if you only have one car, whatever lah, this is the amount yang dia travel lah. But as you go to cars with longer range, then the amount travel tu dia lebih besar. So if you have only one car and your car is Model S, then 100% kau pakai Model S tu lah. But if you have two cars, then it's 66% and 44%. For the Bolt, 58 and 59 if you got two cars, and 59 if you got three cars. So bila the longer the range of the car, available range, the more you will travel guna EV. So because kalau ada dua kereta, it's not 50%, it's 58%. So your travelling is 58% on EV and the remainder on whatever car yang ada lagi satu tu lah. Kan? So this shows that as the range increases, I guess orang tak ada range anxiety lah kot. So that's why dia pakai lebih banyak lah kereta tu kan. And like you said lah Iman, kereta tu so comfortable. you nak pergi ke ICE tu, you probably rasa macam might as well I just stay with the EV lah. And this shows again pretty much something yang agak similar lah. Kemudian dia tunjuk another interesting graph is this one lah. Dia tunjukkan fuel economy, average household fuel economy lah. So kalau yang A ni, warna merah ni, conventional, two conventional vehicle. Kalau yang hijau ni, one plug-in and one conventional vehicle. One plug-in tu either EV or hybrid or plug-in hybrid lah. So pasal dia ada ni semua plug-in only. Plug-in, one conventional, one at least plug-in or full electric. And you can see that the fuel consumption memang drop. The longer the range of the car, the more the household fuel consumption drop. Sebab macam tadilah kita tengok, the longer the range, the more they use the EV. So bila memang tengok kat sini, memang these are the sort of things yang later akan membuatkan orang berganjak ni is because of this. It's just the amount of fuel that you use akan just drop, because kalau you ada 2 kereta pun, then you akan guna EV tu lagi banyak.
Betul? Terutamanya kalau boleh charge kat rumah kan.
Exactly. Memang, kalau ada boleh charge kat rumah, memang no brainer lah.
Yalah, pusing-pusing mana-mana, lepas tu datang balik, cucuk, esok pagi bangun balik, 100% kan. Tak perlu fikir, tak perlu risau.
Yes, it should be a no-brainer lah kan. So, tadi you kata Kak Paul Tan ada satu berita tentang My Zeva kan, nak minta insentif untuk 2023 punya bajet ni kan. And if I'm not mistaken, they're asking for insentif untuk infrastructure kot, untuk charging yang banyak kan, nak minta kan.
Betul.
Because the government dah memang bagi insentif untuk beli kereta semua kan, in terms of tax reduction and whatnot kan. So to me, yang itu ialah benda yang kita nak kena tengok lah. Sebab sekarang ni kita ada di tahap di mana early adopters yang nak beli kereta tu, the golongan T20 and maybe the top quarter of M40, dia orang dah memang bersedia nak beli. Tapi the concern is, satu, range, dan dua, infrastructure. Their third concern yang agak jauh ditinggalkan ke belakang ialah harga. So that's how you know that the T40, T20 dengan top half of the or top quarter of the M40, dia dah okay dah. The price concern is quite low. I think only slightly less than half of them cakap ada price concern lah.
About 45%.
That's right. So for the most part, the concern is about range dengan infrastructure. So dia orang dah ready nak make the jump. Dan aku rasa dia orang should be encouraged to make the jump. And one of the reason kenapa aku rasa dia orang should be encouraged to make the jump is because bila dia orang make the jump, then kerajaan akan menikmati penjimatan dari segi fuel subsidi. Pasal once they jump,
dan sebenarnya another factor yang tak ramai orang bincangkan is that sebenarnya as a power producer, Malaysia output ataupun capacity output kita daripada segi tenaga sebenarnya mencecah penggunaan daripada lebih, I think is more than 50%. Tak silap.
What does that mean?
So on a daily basis, we consume only 50% of the amount of power generated. Dan at the moment,
electricity, you cakap pasal electricity lah.
In terms of electricity. So in terms of tapi disebabkan kita punya lack of infrastructure daripada segi energy storage, that 50% tu dibazirkan macam itu je. Jadi
this is actually normal for most countries sebenarnya. Unless you ada off-peak pricing lah. Betul.
And this is one of the reasons why ramai orang bila kita cakap pasal EV kan, dia orang selalu kata, kalau semua orang beli EV, nanti infrastructure tak mencukupi, ataupun kita punya grid, kita punya electricity grid will not be enough to sustain the demand. Tapi sebenarnya we have more than enough. Dan going back to what you
there are two things there about the grid before you move on. While it is true that right now kita punya install capacity maybe around 27-28 gigawatt hour, and our base load is around, I think it's around 15 lah kot. Our base load lah 15 to 20, 15 lah, aku around 15. But waktu malam memang banyak terbazir lah. But there is some truth in the notion or in the suggestion that grid tak ready untuk accommodate all the charges. Bukan sebab apa, but because the grid is designed in such a way that kalau you nak install a charger tu, dia memerlukan kuasa yang banyak. So you kena cari pencawang yang ada excess power. Dan kalau
Betul.
you perasan, TNB akan, kalau kata dia ada pencawang yang ada 100 kilowatt or whatever it is yang dia orang pakai, dia akan bagi hanya sampai 80 saja. So ada juga kawan-kawan, termasuk kawan-kawan daripada My EV Owners Club, yang kata kenapa tak bagi tinggi lagi. So chief among the reason kenapa dia orang tak bagi penggunaan pencawang tu melebihi 80% ialah kerana pengalaman almost every grid operator lah, kat sini ke kat mana ke. In fact, kalau kita tengok tahun lepas dekat Texas pun benda sama yang berlaku. Actually EV grid ni dia macam deck of cards. Dia senang nak runtuh, dia senang nak roboh. Jadi bila you macam yang Texas tu, because they are not interconnected to any other grid, dia tak boleh nak dapat extra power, so dia collapse, the whole thing collapse. So kita in the 1990s, if you, I don't know whether you remember or not, in the 1990s we had brownouts almost on a weekly basis, and then we had started having rolling blackouts. And that's why for tenaga, they will never want to have that again. They will say, I don't care, it's 80%, do whatever you want to do. I will never give you more than 80%, and unless there's a trip or a short, and then the grid is safe. So this is the thing lah. So bila you nak install in town, that's why you tengok Jentari dia tak boleh install. The reason kenapa Jentari letak dekat Sungai Way tu is because Sungai Way is still an industrial park. So they have a lot of excess power, especially bila factory dah banyak tutup kat situ. So dia boleh install ikut suka hati bapak dia lah, dia nak letak berapa pun TNB tak ada masalah. But if you just lintas seberang jalan pergi sebelah sana, dia dah tak boleh buat dah. Because the other side is residential area. So yes and no, betul kita ada excess power banyak in terms of the total grid capacity to generate power, but it may not be where you want it to be.
Correct. Dan ini kembali kepada apa yang diutarakan oleh Ziva lah petang tadi, di mana apa yang dia minta tu adalah pengurangan subsidi untuk bahan api itu perlu disalurkan semula kepada pengembangan infrastruktur untuk electrical grid in order to support the growth of EV chargers and DCFCs especially. Dan it seems to be a relatively intelligent way to do things lah, sebab kalau kita, whether we like it or not, EVs are the future. Walaupun macam saya, I'm a big fan of your V8s and powerful V6s and so on, tapi like it or not, electric is the future. Jadi kita perlu bersiap sedia untuk menampung permintaan tu. And if by the reduction, kita tak boleh mengatakan kita reduce fuel subsidy semata-mata untuk perkhidmatan, tak boleh. Daripada dasar policy, that saving has to be redirected somewhere else, and ultimately terutamanya untuk pasaran kita di mana kita memberikan priority kepada kereta, that means we have to move towards building a more robust electrical infrastructure in order to support the EV migration.
So ni berita kat Poltan juga lah, Malaysia Singapore in cooperation agreements including for EV standards and charging point collaboration. Jadi nampaknya kerajaan baru ni dia memang agak berminat untuk bergerak ke depan lah in terms of EV. So that's good news, and kita berharap bajet yang akan dibentangkan pada 24 Februari ni
24
akan ada 24 bulan akan ada lebih banyak lah insentif untuk EV. Dan saya setuju sangat yang apa yang Ziva minta tu, pertama sekali sebab dia tak minta banyak. So bajet yang dia minta tu tak banyak lah, about 150 million aja, which is relatively small lah. Dan benda tu memang pada saya dia akan banyak membantu untuk push adoption of EV untuk the top T20 lah and the M40. Sebelum saya nak tunjuk sikit the carta yang saya buat tadi, nak tunjukkan the adoption rate and all that, saya nak tunjuk sikit cerita tentang lithium ni. Ramai orang duk kata we will run out of lithium before 2030. Ada ni geng-geng yang peminat ICE lah duk kata kita akan kehabisan lithium. Dan antara dia punya sebab kenapa kita akan kehabisan lithium ialah kerana the current global reserve is around 39 million tons. Jadi kalau 39 million tons, kita buat EV at the current rate, memang kita akan tak sempat sampai 2030 lah, sebab based on current projection, it is estimated that the world will need around 240 million tons of lithium by 2030. So obviously tak cukup lah. Cuma cerita dia, that's not how mineral reserves work lah. So kalau kita tengok minyak tu dulu dia bermula penghujung 19th century, 1885. Carl Benz buat kereta pembakaran, internal combustion engine, tapi those cars awal dulu pakai alkohol. Tapi cepat-cepatlah dia orang dah convert balik kereta tu untuk pakaikan petrol, sebab industri minyak dibina serentak dengan industri kereta. So kita rasa industri lithium juga akan berkembang sama serentak dengan industri kereta elektrik. Dan kalau kita tengok untuk industri minyak ni, pada tahun 1910 lah, Henry Ford perkenalkan kereta dia tahun 1908, dan the known petroleum reserve masa tu ialah 2.5 billion barrels, dan setahun dia menghasilkan 235 juta barrel. So nampak kalau macam ni ada belas 10 tahun je minyak, kan? 235 million barrel, itu ada 2.5 billion barrel, 10 tahun habis lah, kan? But that's not how it works. Bila kita dapat lebih banyak business dan more investment, dia akan jumpa lebih banyak minyak. So as it is right now, kita punya reserve is at 1.4 trillion. Dia dah jumpa makin banyak lah. So for lithium pun sama. Dia akan meningkat once we have more investment going into mencari lithium. Pasal lithium ni ialah sumber ataupun mineral yang ke-11 terbanyak di dunia. Yang ke-10 ialah sulfur, if I'm not mistaken. So dia memang banyak lah sebenarnya. Cuma cerita dia macam mana nak extract lithium. Buat masa sekarang, dia orang belum jumpa cara yang mudah untuk extract lithium lah. Ada beberapa cadangan untuk cara extract lithium yang lebih mudah. Tapi kita tak tahulah macam mana the stage of development for that. Ada yang kata by 24, 25, we will see new extraction methods, dan ini akan help to stabilize the lithium prices lah. Anyway, as it is pun, company yang macam Tesla expect lithium prices to start to taper off by 2024 lah. Dia kata with new supply coming online lah. Kita tak tahu what they know. I don't know whether that's true or not true, but that is what Tesla is saying. So untuk siapa-siapa yang risau yang kita tak cukup lithium tu, I think jangan risau. Lithium tu kita akan jumpa ikut dengan kita punya amount of investment lah yang kita input into the industry. So okay, so sekarang ni saya nak share sikit screen ni tadi. Jadi screen ni memang banyak number sikit lah. Kalau nak tengok number ni saya tunjuk sikit. So basically sekarang kita tengok graph dia lah. Sekarang ni I just tunjuk the numbers dulu, so you boleh nampak the numbers sekejap. So kat tepi ni kita letak ni ialah tahun lah, sampai 2040 ya. Dan sini kat atas ni saya letak ni 25, 50, 75, 100 adoption rate lah. So ini membayangkan market berkembang 25% setiap tahun. Ini menunjukkan market berkembang 50%, 75% dan 100%. Berganda lah, maksudnya satu dia berganda tiap-tiap tahun lah. So buat masa sekarang ni 25, kayaknya saya punya unjuran paling rendah ialah 25% lah. Kenapa saya kata 25%? Kerana tahun 2020 kita jual 2020 kita jual less than 500 cars, I think 300 je, 300 like that. And 2021 pun we sold like 500, 600 cars EV. But 2022 kita cecah 2,500. So that's an increase lah. Aiman cakap tadi 4 kali ganda kan. 6 times 4 is 24 lah kan.
I think
Is it 8 kali ganda?
8 kali ganda.
100%. So 8 kali ganda. That's even crazier lah. So, but I think that is not sustainable lah. So I think kita boleh tengok all these numbers. Kalau kata kita grow by 25%, maksudnya tahun 2022 kita jual 2,500 kereta. Tahun ni kita jual 3,000 kereta. Dan seterusnya lah, dia turun ke bawah ni, boleh nampak. So 3,000 ni pada saya adalah satu angka yang sangat-sangat konservatif. Kenapa saya kata sangat-sangat konservatif? Kerana BYD saja dia target jual 3,000 kereta tahun ni.
Betul.
So BYD 3,000, let's say Hyundai can sell, I don't know, 500 to 1,000 cars. Let's say 500 cars, just kena kasih rendah, it's 3,500. Katalah Kia boleh jual, I don't know, 50 kereta. Kia mungkin dia kecil sikit kan, 50 cars. Lepas tu let's assume Volvo punya capacity dekat Shah Alam tu dalam, I don't know, 80 kereta sebulan kot kan. So they're going to be doing about 900 cars a year for dia orang punya EV this year. So Volvo campur dengan BYD dah 4,000 lebih dah dengan Hyundai. Belum campur lagi Aura katalah boleh jual 500 kereta. Dah berapa dah? Dah 4,500.
Lepas tu kita pun nak ambil kira
tu
lagi Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz dah mula dah untuk
Mercedes-Benz kita tak tahu berapa, tapi BMW katanya 1,000 kereta dekat jual tahun lepas EV.
Betul.
So let's say Mercedes half of that lah. But it may not be half, kita pun tak tahu sebenarnya kan macam mana dia punya marketing dia, how the demand. Even if we assume half, that will be at around 5,000 cars untuk tahun ni. That's actually a growth of 100%. But kita tengok 25% lah. Let's say kita tengok paling konservatif sekali lah. At 25%, the government nak tengok, I think 15% kot. TIV. EV by 2030 for something like that kan. So, ni rendah lah. Tak sampai lah. Kalau 25% kita takkan capai lah 2030. Kalau kita 50% pun kita tak capai by 2030. Pasal 64,000, kalau TIV is 700,000, of course this is less than 10% lah. Unless TIV drop lah. And so it doesn't work. At 75%, then you'll be over the 15%, stipulated 15%. So this will be assuming, if we assume the TIV can grow up to 800,000 by 2030, so this is about 27, 28%. And of course, if it's 100%, then by 2030 kita dah more than 50% EV lah. And the government nak tengok, I think 50% EV by 2040. And no other scenario this can happen. At 2040, kalau kita tengok, this is low. But kalau kita tengok 50%, we will achieve 50% TIV in 2035. And by 2036, it's all over for ICE. Because the rate of growth at 50% ni dia dah habis lah, tapau gitu je. And if it hits 75%, we are done by 2032. If this grows at 100%, memang mati kuda saya 2030 dah tak ada apa dah lah. Habis lah, that's the last. You will see ICE lah having any kind of serious role to play. So these are the reality lah. Kalau kita tengok dia punya carta dia pula, graf dia, tunjuk graf dia. Mungkin susah nak nampak kat situ. Saya tunjuk graf sekejap. So the graph, kalau kita tengok ini untuk sampai 2030. Ini 100% punya lonjakan. Ini 75%, ini 50% punya lonjakan. So saya sekarang suka tengok yang 50% ni lah. Because that's where most of the industry experts kata dia akan grow at about 50% lah. 25% tu makan lama sikit lah kan. 25% makan lama sikit lah, mungkin 2050, which could also be the case lah. But whichever way, kita tak ada more than 25 years lah to get to whatever we need to get lah kan. From sekarang, 25 years means 2048 lah. Almost 2050. By 2050 tu dah, it should at least be 50% lah. So you ada basically 20 years max lah in the worst case scenario. Ini pula ialah yang ni graf ni ialah mengenai carta yang berbeza. Yang ni yang saya ceritakan tadi mengenai penjimatan dari segi bahan api, minyak, subsidi minyak basically ya. Kita nak cakap subsidi minyak. So kalau kita tengok kat sini, ini tahun sama juga, dia punya table sama, total on the road total on the road, kita ambil 25% growth tau. Kita tak ambil besar-besar punya, kita ambil 25% punya growth. So kita tengok fuel subsidy savings. Kita assume 2,500 kereta, and each one of them travel 20,000 kilometers. Kan? Average lah. It might be lower, but I'm just saying average 20,000 kilometers. At fuel consumption rate of 10 kilometers per liter, they use about 2,000 liters of fuel. Betul tak?
Thereabouts,
And RM2 subsidi per liter. Thereabouts kan? So the saving is about RM4,000 per car. So kalau dengan adanya 2,500 kereta, kerajaan jimat 10 juta setahun. Ini kadar growth rate of 25%. At the growth rate of 25%. In the second year, kalau the same growth rate, because subsidi ni dia akan berterusan lah. Kita assume, kalau kita tengok umur kereta ni 20 tahun, most cars will last 20 years lah. Kan? I don't know whether EV boleh bertahan 20 tahun ke tidak, but we're going to assume, let's say, 20 years lah. So tahun pertama, tahun kedua dia cumulative, bertambah. Plus 3125 jadi 5625 ribu kereta, penjimatan dia 22 juta. 28 dan dia terus naik. But if at the rate of 25%, by 2040 we will save $1 billion lah. $1 billion a year. In terms of subsidi. Tapi kalau at 50%, then dia jadi lain lah cerita dia. Kita let's do a little quick live calculation kat sini. We'll start still at 50% growth. 50% growth. We still start at 2,500. So yang ini that's the number at 50% rate of growth, and then we just continue lah 50% rate of growth. So dekat sini saving dia tetap sama kan, saving dia is still RM4. RM4,000. So the first year sama saving dia, then we almost completely habis. Tak ada, ni langsung dah by the year 2038 dah habis dah. The total fuel subsidy yang sekarang 9 bilion tu dah tak ada, langsung dah tak ada dah. That's how, if at 50% growth rate lah. So if the government is worried and dia tak tahu macam mana timeline dia nak reduce the EV the fuel subsidy, dan aku nampak cara paling bukan kata paling mudah, paling sikit political pain lah is by encouraging EV growth lah. By encouraging EV growth. So what do you think? Any kind of thoughts on that?
The thing is, I maklumat macam ni kalau kita ambil macam in a very simple calculation tu mungkin dia mudah lah nampak macam ni. Tapi masalahnya yang kita faham daripada in terms of how T20 buyers tend to use their cars kan. Yes, majority of them, quite a number of them sekarang ni mungkin dah ada EV, mungkin dia beli Ioniq 5 ke atau Porsche Taycan ke apa ke. Tapi the usage of those cars mungkin tak berapa tinggi. Di mana mungkin on a day-to-day basis they will still use macam Mercedes-Benz S-Class ke atau Alphard ke apa ke, anything yang guna internal combustion engine untuk ulang-alik lah yang driver bawa apa semua, pasal hujung minggu baru guna EV. So I don't think, pada pendapat saya lah, rasanya kita takkan capai tahap penjimatan subsidi minyak yang disasarkan tu lah And that leads on to a much bigger issue in terms of subsidi besar salah. Tapi it stands to reason yang berkemungkinan besar kita boleh significantly reduce kita punya annual spend on fuel subsidies mungkin by about 2045 or maybe by latest by 2050 lah. Sebab masalahnya masih ada pengguna yang the majority of the usage tu mencecah 200 km sehari. In fact, even I at one point when I still living and working within the Klang Valley pun satu hari dekat 150 km. So I guess for users yang macam tu mungkin progressing to EVs might be a bit difficult, terutamanya kalau diorang duduk dalam kondo atau
But what is the
atau
percentage
flat.
of people who travel as much as you?
Yeah, it's going to be small. Tapi the idea that kita akan we will completely move into EVs by 2038, by 2040 macam tu mungkin tak realistic lah. But
Oh, you
I
don't think
think
that's realistic?
that it's a bit too optimistic lah bagi saya, sebab kita kena
Why do you say
faham
that?
yang because kalau kita tengok historically, Malaysian buyers have always been a bit more on the conservative side. Daripada segi hybrid pun, when we first started to berjinak dengan hybrid dengan Prius, I think there was also the Hyundai Ioniq, apa semua tu. When we moved towards hybrids, the take-up rate was a little bit lower than expected, and the only reason why hybrids sold in Malaysia was only when the government provided proper incentives. We can see something similar to that now, di mana pengurangan cukai dan cukai jalan untuk EV sekarang ni dah menyebabkan kadar penjualan EV tu melonjak gila-gila tahun lepas. Tapi ultimately sekarang ni macam one of the commenters mentioned, now there's starting to be a bit of a retraction sebab ada setengah orang yang risau macam nanti 2035 nanti road tax EV mahal nak mampus. And akan ada, dan as more people start to get into EVs akan mula kata mungkin infrastruktur tak cukup. So there will be people yang lebih konservatif. And as you have to take into account that we are also an aging nation. So as the majority of, or rather a larger proportion of Malaysians begin to get older, they are going to be less receptive towards new technology. And when you take that into account, masih akan ada orang yang dia akan mati-mati, dia tak kisah yang mungkin Toyota dan sekarang dah semua dah elektrik ke apa ke, dia akan tetap pergi keluar dan beli Product MyV yang masih lagi menggunakan petrol, disebabkan itu yang dia dah biasa dengan guna petrol. Dan dia tak nak fikir susah-susah pening-pening pasal benda elektrik ni. So I think it would be very optimistic to believe that we can phase out electric vehicles or phase out the fuel subsidy entirely by 2038. Tapi it's a nice target to have lah, memandangkan, and then you also have to take into account yang kita punya
Why did
sasaran.
you say that we have an aging demographic?
Because if we look at the statistics over the last decade, it's shown that our average age has gone up ever so slightly. It's creeping, but we're getting there. As
This is
enough time.
2020.
Yeah. But if we look at the statistics over the last decade, I think there was a study, I can't remember, I think it was taken out by KKM, it must have been Q4 last year, tak silap. But I may be wrong. But we have to take that demographic into account as well. And
Okay. But kalau you nak compare dengan hybrid, boleh tak saya katakan bahawa masa hybrid tu memang the whole world, even Toyota themselves accept that hybrid is a bridging technology.
Betul.
So when it's bridging technology, memang I don't expect take up rate to be high lah. But apa yang berlaku sekarang untuk EV, I think is different because EV is a replacement technology. So it's not a bridging technology.
Mungkin, tapi we have to take into account that Malaysians are just very conservative. Mungkin the majority of hybrid buyers.
Bukti.
Okay, kita tengok resale value untuk hybrids after 5 years. If we look at hybrid resale values,
hybrid you kena discount pasal it's a bridging technology. Let's
How
not
many
look at
people-
hybrid. Let's look at other technology yang you boleh suggest.
even if we look at, for example, plug-in hybrids, again, what you're considering is you're correct in saying that it's a bridging technology, and we understand that it's bridging technology, but the majority of buyers did not consider it to be a bridging technology.
Oh,
For
of
them,
course, that's why they didn't buy it. It's because
Tapi
it's bridging technology,
bagi-
that's why they didn't buy it.
Bagi mereka yang membeli, dia memfikirkan yang okay, kalau kereta saya di-electrified, bermaksud yang ada penjimatan penggunaan bahan api on a day-to-day basis.
That's
And
not,
that was-
but that's not true. Everybody knows that's not true. Most people who buy plug-in hybrids hardly ever charge their car. They're only buying it because, like you say, the only reason they buy it is because of the tax breaks. And they don't use the
Correct.
plug-in hybrid. I have friends yang beli plug-in hybrid, lepas 3 bulan langsung dah tak charge dah kereta. And that's what the studies found in Europe pun. That's why they are trying to plug the loophole on plug-in hybrid. They're not going to get incentives at all untuk plug-in hybrid because the saving is just not there. So people who bought it did not buy it for the right reason. Almost none of them bought it for the right reason. They all just bought it because of the incentive that made the price cheaper.
Then I'm going to roll it back even further to Pro 2 where they are right now dengan dia punya hybrid dia.
Okay. Alright.
Kalau dia orang betul-betul, if they were really confident yang Malaysian buyers will accept new technology atas dasar yang akan ada penjimatan duit or in terms of expense in any way, shape or form, mereka mungkin takkan mencuba-cuba dengan dia punya hybrid pilot program. They would have been more aggressive dengan benda tu. Sebab mereka memahami
Okay.
yang
Again, that's hybrid, and nobody has ever argued yang hybrid ni boleh menjimatkan duit. Because
I
the
still
battery
believe-
replacement, double engine and all that is just...
But it is my belief that Malaysian buyers are on the conservative side. Dan up until a point where EV infrastructure and especially incentivization to have charging at home reaches a point where the majority of people who purchase their cars under 100,000 ringgit can afford to have such facilities at home, it's unlikely that we will see adoption rate get to anywhere beyond 60% in the timeline that you're suggesting lah. But again, this is dasar policy lagi dah. So kalau kerajaan memberi insentif yang sepatutnya untuk pemilik premis, untuk pengurus premis terutamanya macam stratified properties, condos, flats apa semua, kalau ada polisi yang memberikan insentif untuk mereka mengembangkan fasiliti charging di properties like condos and so on yang where the majority of us live in the Klang Valley, I don't think adoption rate will reach that lovely optimistic point that everybody thinks is going to get.
Okay. Personally, I'm of the opinion that this is the curve, and it's difficult to change this, and this is going to be reality because this is a transition technology and it's not a bridging technology. But we'll see this year whether
But to that end, I'm happy to be proven wrong. Macam pada awalnya bila kereta elektrik first sampai kat Malaysia ni, saya pun dah fikir macam takkanlah, mustahil lah orang akan pakai EV dekat Malaysia, charger tak banyak, lepas tu kalau charge pun slow.
Okay, tell me this. Your experience bila you bawa EV, I'm sure you do the same thing that I do. Aku akan bawa tunjuk ke manusia-manusia yang akan kata EV ni boring, bosan, you'll never buy an EV, and will show them first the EV. Is that what you do as well?
Kadang-kadang, yes.
So my experience is aku tunjuk dekat semua orang yang aku bawa ni, chances aku akan cari orang yang tak suka EV lah, yang first kali aku tunjuk. So the first person when I got the Polestar 2, aku bawa kereta tu pergi ke kawan aku, dia ada workshop dekat Kota Damansara. Ni kawan aku pada sekolah, dia ni memang totok kereta. Tiap kali aku pergi dia punya workshop since 2017, aku akan cerita pasal EV, he'll roll his eyes, kata Allah hang ni tak habis-habis cerita EV lagi. So when he got the Polestar, I brought over the Polestar to him. And bear in mind, this guy memang kaki kereta, and whenever I get a nice car, I bring to him, tak kira lah AMG ke apa beruk ke. Dia tak pernah macam get over excited where he would, continue to drive and just not want to give me the car back lah. The Polestar, he did not want to give me the car back. On the strength of one single drive. And then after that, he scratched his head and said, oh, if this is the future, then aku demam malam ni. Dia kata, pasal apa? Aku akan teringat kereta ni. Pasal it's just a block step change in everything lah.
It's a very funny story sebab I have a friend, dia kawan lama jugalah, dia memang kaki kereta, dan kereta dia semua kereta, he buys old cars yang murah, yang orang dah tak sayang, yang hancur, lepas tu dia akan ambil, dia akan restore, lepas tu bawa. I think dia punya daily driver dia Volvo V40 yang first gen tak silap. And dia memang kaki kereta, anak-anak dia pun kaki kereta. And hari tu when I happen to have an electric vehicle, Kona EV tak silap, over New Year's, I had it over a longer period. So I kata, okay, jomlah kita pergi. Sebab dia kaki makan. So okay, jomlah kita pergi Hulu Langat. kan, biar dia rasa bawa EV kan. Dia masuk kereta, ui senyap lah. And as we drove along, dia kata ni macam gila. So dia kata dia punya performance dengan dia punya tak ada vibration, tak ada bunyi, tak ada apa. Walaupun you can be travelling at 110-120 kilometers an hour, walaupun tak ada bunyi langsung, dia kata ini lain macam. Lepas tu bila dia bawa kereta tu, untuk sekejap aja dia bawa kereta tu dengan dia punya one pedal driving, dia kata ini gila lah macam ni, aku balik kereta aku bakar. Dia kata bakar kereta aku, tak guna.
Betul.
Dan but again, we are talking about, these are people yang macam you mentioned earlier lah, we are in a demographic di mana kita tak ada masalah menghadap kesusahan dan kepayahan untuk menghadap.
But you see that's not true of those guys that we talk about. They're only kaki kereta ICE. You see?
Betul.
They hate this thing. And they are converted on the strength of one short drive. Okay? The majority of people are not car guys. We are in the small minority of about 10% of people yang kaki kereta. The 90%, kalau orang yang kaki kereta yang, I mean, this guy buys unloved cars. I mean, the V40 first generation is neither pretty nor exciting to drive and has no real virtue other than the fact that maybe it lasts a long time. Right? That's my opinion lah anyway, you know. And yet, here's a person yang macam itu, boleh bawa kereta EV yang semua orang kutuk and is converted just like that. So can you imagine orang yang tak kaki kereta? Orang yang tak kaki kereta ni, they don't care about the sound, don't care about the handling, they don't care about anything. They just want something to move them from point A to point B. Can you imagine macam mana dia orang punya reaction when they get into an EV? It's almost...
These buyers akan tetap menahan diri lah selagi infrastruktur dan policy tu tak mencukupi. And I think is where
to me once the cars are affordable, they will have to seriously consider it lah.
Betul?
You know?
Even now, even kalau kita tengok tahun ni pun, it will be very exciting to see macam mana ICE vehicles di sekitar sort of julat harga 140 hingga 180 ribu atau up to 200,000. Kita kena perhati dia punya sales numbers tahun ni berbanding dengan EV sales within that same julat harga. So rasanya
in Malaysia we still tak akan nampak kesan besar lah. I don't think we'll see like a huge change.
Mungkin tak kesan besar, tapi selagi kita boleh match macam kalau lah BYD betul-betul dapat capai sasaran 3,000 kereta tahun ni kan, kita tengok 3,000 tu datang dari mana? Sebab TIV kita takkan, based on MAA punya briefing hari tu, dia kata TIV tahun lepas 722,000 tak silap, tahun ni kita tak akan replicate. Tahun ni kita akan turun balik ke mungkin 650,000 kereta. Dan
exactly. So that's why everybody says 650, that's right.
Dan kalau betul BYD dan golongan lain dapat mencapai dia punya sales targets untuk electric vehicles, it will be interesting to see where those sales come from.
Well, it might be to spread out over so many brands that we don't. That's all I'm saying is that if let's say we hit 5,000 lah, on the conservative side 5,000, let's say even on the most optimistic side kita hit 10,000, that's like if you split it over 10 brands, seorang 1,000, they can blame it on anything.
Ya, betul.
You see?
Betul.
So, that's why aku cakap dia tak boleh nak nampak lagi. But what is more important is we look at the global trend. Because if the global market grows to such an extent, then manufacturers cannot afford to build any more ICE ataupun invest into ICE in any big way. 2023 to me is memang watershed year lah this year. I mean last year, if you followed my channel lah, I've always said that 2022 is the last year that you can still be planning stuff. The year 2023, you have to start executing already. If you're still planning in 2023, you're already behind. And memang aku rasa kalau kau tak boleh execute by 2024 or 2025, we just have to wave you goodbye. It's not okay, so right now we are at 10%. If in 2023 we hit 15%, between 15 to 20%, then there's no turning back. If it's a 50% growth, then it takes less than 10 years to wipe out the entire ICE market. And while I agree that kita kat Malaysia ni may be behind in terms of EV arriving here, tapi I wonder whether you are correct in saying that kita conservative. Because when it comes to technology, Asians, and that includes us, tend to be a bit fast in adopting new technology. Kita punya transition pergi ke smartphone pun it happen much quicker than with the Americans, for example. To some extent, even some countries in Europe pun tak boleh match kita punya adoption rate. And the thing is that bila kita cerita tentang harga ni, this is my opinion lah, I don't think EV prices will ever come as low as ICE prices. For the simple reason that the value proposition is so good that there's no reason for them to sell it at that price, even when they can sell it at that price. Dia macam smartphone lah. You can buy a smartphone for, right now, paling murah RM700. Right? And towards the end of the stupid phone, you could get them as cheap as about 300 plus, RM400. But right now, if you ask somebody to, even like say 5 years ago, if you ask somebody whether they want a dumb phone or not, they'll say, no way, Jose, man. Even though it's half the price. So let's say right now the cheapest ICE, which is the Asia, setting aside the driving school special, is about 35,000.
Betul.
If the Asia replacement is an electric car and it's at 60,000, it is still definitely worthwhile to buy. Sebab of the savings on all the other things. Kan?
Betul. Tetapi Malaysians at the moment, kalau kita tengok terutamanya di ruang komen dan forum apa semua, beramai sangat orang yang ada pun orang nak cakap pasal facility nak charge kereta tu. Dan at the moment masih ada banyak lagi trepidation dan anxiety with regards to battery longevity. Dan and so because of that, mungkin that's why I believe that Malaysian buyers are going to remain conservative, sebab memandangkan majoriti pembeli kereta di bawah julat harga 80,000 akan ambil loan sepanjang 9 tahun.
Betul.
So you're going to think, will my car last for 9 years? And at the moment, masih lagi orang yang takut, yang mungkin EV tu, mungkin hari ni dia kata 100% boleh dapat 450 km. Tapi mungkin dalam masa 9 tahun tu, dah charge kereta mungkin maksimum 230 km. Highly unlikely lah. Tapi
I agree that the Achilles heel is the battery. Betul. Kan? Battery tu is dia punya weak point, orang takut tak tahan lama.
Betul.
Right? So, concern worry. So, that is memang real. Aku pun nak beli pun, itu aku punya biggest concern lah. Aku tak tahu berapa lama boleh tahan.
And I think that is going to be, itu akan jadi sebab utama majoriti orang akan mungkin terhegeh nak beli EV.
Cuma, aku percaya that battery life will the longevity of the battery will increase quite rapidly. In fact, sekarang ni aku rasa all the estimates about battery life is on the conservative side.
Betul.
Now the reason why I say that simple, warranty sekarang untuk battery life berapa?
8 tahun.
8 tahun.
Majority.
Some people give 10 tahun, but 8 tahun lah. For the most part, it's 8 years, right? So now, for a car company, what does that mean? When the warranty is 8 years.
That means realistically, they are looking at 15 years.
Okay, so, but itu on our side, we are thinking like that. But for them, what does a warranty actually mean? A warranty actually means income yang dia dah ambil masuk escrow. Dia tak boleh put that on profit as profit. Dia tak boleh pakai duit tu. It's put on escrow. So if you put escrow 8 tahun, letih bhai.
Betul?
That means dia confident lah. Kalau tidak, kan duit tu lebur macam mana kan? Letih lah kan. Kalau simpan 8 tahun, betul lebur macam tu. Tak ada nak ambil. Tak record as profit. So, you're right. The life is probably 15 tahun. And right now, the oldest Model S dah masuk 11-12 tahun. Kan? 11 years lah. 2011 lah dia keluar.
Something like that lah.
So 10 or 11 years lah dia dah masuk 10 or 11 years. And you still don't see any serious issues with battery problems. Yang accident, pecah, belanggar tu lain cerita lah. Kan? Masuk air ke tu semua. So, but normal wear and tear, dia tak ada real issue. Ya, state of health tu turun lah to 75, ada yang 80%. But even those are relatively small numbers. Dalam my Evoque pun, I tengok kereta Tuan Presiden lah, itu kena. dia punya battery kong. But other than that, it seems that the car punya battery lifespan tu tak adalah pendek sangat. But you're right lah, pasal kereta ICE 20 tahun tu biasa lah, kan? 20
Betul.
years boleh lah. Although it requires overhaul maybe at 20-25 years, but boleh pakai lah kan.
Tapi yang saya harapkan, yang saya harapkan lah over the next few years kita tengok lebih banyak keluar tu dia menjadi lebih inovatif dengan bateri tu, kemungkinan dengan capability untuk menukar atau mengganti sel yang degraded over time tu, daripada nak tukar satu battery pack tu terus, mungkin dia boleh tukar individual cells. That might be a way to keep maintenance cost and longevity a bit better lah.
I believe the Chinese is doing something that will lead to that, in the sense that the Chinese government starting mungkin last year dah shift dia orang punya incentive to give more incentive to those yang boleh buat battery swapping. They're giving incentives for battery swapping stations and that sort of thing. So to me, battery swapping ni bila dia orang buat macam tu, it shows that they are very strategic. Because kalau you nak encourage battery swapping, it doesn't make sense that every company can only swap their own battery.
Betul.
So it makes sense that the Chinese automakers akan sedar even this year or next year that they need to standardize battery size. Now, if you want to standardize battery size, you cannot make it the size that it is today. It has to be smaller. So right now, typical EV punya battery size 50, 70, 100 macam itulah. Some of them are 80, but it's between the range of 50 to 100 untuk yang let's say normal price. Yang the more affordable ones, the battery size starts about 30. Kan? 25 to 30. So aku nampak in the future, the battery size will be reduced into packs of either 25 or 30. Then when you buy a car, if you just only going to use it in town, 25 kilowatt hour is fine. Just beli kereta dengan satu saja battery pack, and every time untuk long distance travel, you sewa additional battery pack for when you want to go out the station. And that means that then you are only worried about that small battery pack lah kalau rosak pun, because the others are your leasing, it's not yours, you don't care. Or you might even be leasing all your batteries for all we know. Kita tak tahu, because the business model untuk benda ni is still not quite clear. Tesla punya is the Apple punya model, which people might follow, we don't know, which means battery dulu kan Apple was the first on battery, tak boleh buka lah, tak boleh tukar lah, tak boleh apa lah. Macam mana-macam dia buat pun, people will crack the code and now you can replace anything you want. Right? Susah macam mana Apple buat pun, still people can replace it, because that's the nature of the electronics industry lah. Once the code is cracked, then it's just cheap actually to do the replacement and the repair. So untuk kereta elektrik ni, aku nampak lah dia punya cerita dia is a transition from a mechanical industry pergi ke electronic industry. And we transition to electronic industry ni dia very low BOM cost. It's very high R&D and marketing, but very low BOM cost when you look down to the component level. Where it's mostly silicon, pasir kan, whichever way you want to turn it, the transistors or whatever, the little components dalam tu, harga dia sen-sen aja.
Betul.
So but when you combine it, then dia jadi mahal lah, because of that skill of combining or whatever lah. So aku nampak kereta elektrik ni akan jadi sama, because dalam kereta elektrik itu, the only Achilles heel is battery.
Betul.
Everything else is designed to last longer than in an ICE.
Betul.
So that's the only one thing yang orang takut ialah battery. And I think 5 to 10 years, then that worry akan evaporate lah. Dan also that battery punya concern tu, sebenarnya kalau kita tengok in reality, kalau you ada kereta ICE, when you buy it brand new, let's say you have 200 horsepower, after 10 tahun berapa horsepower tinggal?
Betul. Memang akan ada performance degradation. Tapi bila kita cakap pasal prestasi engine tu, daripada segi dia top end performance tu, majoriti orang takkan pakai. Sebab ultimately bila kita letak 50 liter minyak dalam tu, kita boleh tetap lagi jalan 500 km. Tapi dia berbeza sikit dengan ICE dengan BEV, sebab kalau battery tu degrade, for example, if I were to buy a Kona EV today, I can confidently drive daripada sini ke Pulau Pinang on one charge. Tapi mungkin dalam 5 tahun akan datang, if my range no longer allows me to do that, if I bought my car on a 9-year loan, saya masih terpalit dengan loan bank tu untuk lagi 4 tahun walaupun sekarang my battery range only says 135 kilometers.
So tell me what is a comfortable range? What is a reasonable range?
Okay. Ini
Minimum lah, kita parah-parah pun berapa?
Ini berbalik kepada the video that I'll be putting out quite soon actually, yang membincangkan kalau kita boleh pakai EV in town, tak ada charger dekat rumah. I feel like the comfortable range is about 400 kilometers. So kalau kita tengok 400 kilometer tu is 400 kilometers.
Why so much?
It's mostly a perception issue. So kalau kita
Mostly
biasa
it's a
katakanlah,
factor of you not being able to charge at home.
ya betul. Because majority of people who live in the Klang Valley tak ada charger dekat rumah. Jadi
Okay, so
memandangkan
let's make an assumption that the government will work towards right to charge and will make sure that if you just want to charge, then your management company kena bagi pasang charger. Then will that be an issue? Will that be an issue anymore?
It will still be 400 kilometers. So kalau kita
Why
tengok
400 kilometers?
Because Malaysians there are two
How much
things
is the
about
range of the Ativa? Ativa berapa kilometer kau boleh pergi?
400.5 ke tak silap hari tu.
Bawa macam mana 400.5?
Decently in town macam biasalah kita ikut had laju yang sepatutnya lah.
Kalau you bawa laju sikit tak dapat kita tu 400.5. Aku tak pernah dapat lebih daripada 300.5.
Kalau bawa macam Pleset, KL Ipoh satu tangki habis lah.
Betul. 200 plus saja. But you don't care. Why you don't care? Why is it that you don't care?
Sebab petrol station bersepah.
Exactly. So when charging station jadi banyak, will you care?
I have a feeling yang orang akan tetap, that will still be a point for a lot of people because charging takes a lot longer than a splash and dash the petrol station. Kalau Ativa habis, berhenti 5 minit dah penuh dah. Tapi kalau if you have something like say a BYD Atto 3, where if you take the standard range model which charges at 60 kilowatts and you have a 50 something
so
kilowatt battery.
For the one disadvantage that it takes maybe 3-4 times longer to charge the car than it is to fill petrol, what you're getting in return is much lower energy bill every month, right? And the car probably has far more features.
If people are willing to go that far and actually consider that amount of saving, because antara benda yang saya hadap lah, terutama bila cakap pasal EV kan, banyak orang dia lebih bergantung pada persepsi dan bukan pada realiti ataupun data.
No,
so
this is memang, for me, I agree with you 100%, but this is only because it's early days. There's not enough data to go on.
Selagi
so one of the big data yang dah turun atas kepala kita is Hertz punya profit for year 2022. You tengok tak Hertz punya profit for year 2022?
No.
So Hertz car rental was close to, I wouldn't say bankruptcy, but they were in deep trouble in the masa zaman COVID tu lah. So in 2021, they decided to order 100,000 Tesla. Right? So now, theoretically, kita semua tahu bahawa fleet owners, the moment they see the saving, they will jump. But nobody has actual data to show anybody. Right? So now 2022, at the end of 2022, Hertz recorded record profit. So dia beritahu kenapa dia ada record profit. So they have record profit not because suddenly EV tu, kata let's say on average, they get 100 days of rental for a car over a year, right? So it's not as if suddenly bila dia ada Tesla tu gets 250 days of rental. Tak. There's an increase, but the increase is fairly reasonable. Not I wouldn't say nominal. It is significant, but that's not the main contributor to dia punya profit in a way. So dia kata the main contributor to the profit is dia orang punya maintenance cost is 60% lower on the Teslas. And bila kita tengok implication 60% lower tu, satu, of course you spend less money on maintenance, but secondly it means the cars are in the workshop for maintenance a lot less. Let's assume 60% less days, which means that you have 60% extra days to rent out the cars. So that's how they are getting more rental days out of the car. It's because the cars are in service more. So just based on that alone, kalau kita as right now, aku faham semua apa benda yang kau cakap dan aku setuju. But let's assume, aku pun tak kata orang akan beli EV ni untuk selamatkan alam sekitar, apa beruk semua, tak ada lah. Nobody's gonna buy that. Everybody's a selfish motherfucker. They're only gonna buy when it saves them money. And this thing will save you money, and it's that's just I cannot see how aku sekarang ni nak fikir ke mana aku nak cari duit nak pergi beli kereta EV.
Betul.
Kan?
Kita dulu sama lah tu. Tapi itulah kita kena sampai.
And the only reason we are there is because we've driven the damn thing and you can see.
Ya, betul. Tapi kita kena
kau tak ada neighbor lagi sebelah. Kalau neighbor, bayangkan mangkuk ayun sebelah rumah kau dah ada, kau pergi naik kereta dia sekejap. Neighbor aku depan rumah 2 orang. Balik tengok Ustaz, apa kereta ni? Naik lepas tu, dah garuk kepala dah. Dia cakap sabar. Dia duduk komplain, mahal tahan sabar Ustaz. Tunggu 2 tahun ke 3 tahun nanti dia mai. BYD atur dia pergi lari pergi tengok tu. Dah.
Tapi itulah, kita kena sampai ke satu tahap di mana fasiliti dan infrastruktur itu mencukupi, satu. Dan kedua, kita kena sampai ke satu tahap di mana naratif dalam media automotif ni bercakap benda yang sama, iaitu
okey ni tengok komen kawan kita ni Ustaz. Kita baru cakap je benda ni.
Okey. Ini adalah satu masalah, sebab tu itulah antara sebab Pro2 sekarang ni tengah menjinak dengan hybrid. Sebab sekarang ni the raw cost untuk EV terlampau tinggi. Dan untuk majority of Malaysian buyers, yes, kita punya EV.
Why do you say the cost for EV is higher than ICE? Tell me.
At the moment, the raw cost, if you're looking at the raw
what's
material,
the proof? Bukti.
Kalau hang on, I have to look for the studies that I've been looking at. Tapi off the top of my head lah, at the moment disebabkan the current supply of batteries are very limited because they're only available from a select number of manufacturers around the globe, dan disebabkan demand terlampau tinggi, supply tak mencukupi, the cost to acquire batteries is very high. Dan itu antara sebab EV mampu milik atau EV marhain tu susah sangat nak cari. Dekat China pun kalau kita nampak yang betul-betul murah tu, hanya sebab kerajaan bagi insentif untuk buatkan kereta tu murah untuk diguna pakai di pusat bandar sahaja.
Okay, you know the geometry kung fu cow kan?
No, not off the top.
Geometry kung fu cow. You don't know the kung fu cow? I thought you say you're an EV fan. Geometry kung fu cow.
Maybe I have seen it and then I terlupa. Yes, the small one.
Right? So that one is about 38,000 in China, ringgit kalau convert
39,000, yeah, something like that.
Okay? And that has a range of about 200 kilometers. Maybe 220 ke, I can't remember, but about less than 250 or less lah. And aku bisik-bisik lah tanya kawan-kawan kan, weh, hang rasa-rasa ni kalau bawa masuk Melaya ni berapa harga hang boleh jual still buat untung? 65 boleh buat duit dah. So, the reason why I mention this is because memang ramai orang kata the cost of EV is higher than the cost of ICE. But where's the proof? I will tell you proof. Tesla
Until we don't
produces cars that is at the level of 3 series in the Model 3 and the Model Y. Right? And at the range of C-class punya pricing. And what's their margin? You tell me. What's their gross margin?
Kalau tak silap, around $10,000 per car.
30% gross margin. What's the next highest one? Take a wild guess. Who has the next highest gross margin?
I haven't the slightest clue. Tapi sebenarnya hari tu I was
Bintang 3 ada about 20% gross margin. So how can you say that the cost is higher? The only reason why the cost is higher is because they're building it on a suboptimal platform. And because their supply chain is not geared towards EV. And operating margin untuk Tesla is about 17%. And you know what everybody else's operating margin is or not? Low teens. You're lucky. Toyota will be lucky if they get 11. Some years they're single digit margin, operating margin. So actually the margin for EV, if done correctly, is actually better because there's just less component. But if you're building it in a factory designed for ICE and your platform is designed for ICE, then there's just so much compromise that memang you tak boleh achieve lah.
Tapi perbezaan antara syarikat macam Tesla dengan legacy automakers macam Toyota ataupun Mercedes-Benz atau BMW is that untuk Tesla, disebabkan mereka syarikat yang baru, kalau infrastruktur dan ekosistem di sesuatu pasaran luar pasaran diorang sendiri is not conducive towards EVs, they just don't sell there. For example, Tesla masih lagi tak ada official dealership kat Malaysia because one is because they cannot sell directly, and two is because they don't feel yang kita mempunyai ekosistem yang mencukupi untuk menampung demand untuk EV at the moment. Jadi mereka
But that's got nothing to do with cost.
So, because of that, car makers macam Mercedes-Benz dan BMW, number one, they cannot afford to abandon their internal combustion vehicles wholesale sebab masih lagi terlampau banyak demand.
No. Wait. You're going to a different discussion. We're talking about the cost of producing EV.
Correct.
Versus
But
cost
that-
of producing ICE. So
but
I
that's
understand
one-
that they have all this invested thing that they cannot just let go. Itu aku faham. But what proof do you have to say that the cost of producing EV is higher than the cost of producing an ICE?
This was based on data that I got from Autocar several months ago lah.
You know that Volkswagen punya Herbert Diess made known to the world that Tesla only took 10 hours to build a car, Volkswagen requires 30 hours, and Toyota requires 20 hours to build cars. Because of the less number of components to put together. So dekat situ kilang aja you can see that they just have a lot of cost advantage, but you need to design the thing for that.
Betul.
Ah.
Dan this goes back to sebenarnya kita punya asal discussion ni, which is kita globally we've arrived at an inflection point di mana take up rate at this point hanya akan menjadi lebih, is going to get better as time goes by. So at this point ada
Okay,
lebih
so let's
insentif
try to
untuk-
answer Muhammad K punya soalan ni.
Yep. Kalau replacement EV start 60,000, berapa ramai? Okay, kalau kita based on discussions with certain car makers yang ada kereta dalam jumlah harga itulah. Sebab I have asked sebelum ni kenapa dalam sesuatu model tu masih lagi perlu ada beberapa variant yang macam terlampau dekat. Yang ada mungkin beza RM1,500, RM2,000 sahaja. And a lot of them kata yang mungkin perbezaan RM1,500, RM2,000 ni adalah beza antara kalau orang lepas loan ke tidak. And because the Malaysian market is very price sensitive, nombor satu, dan nombor dua, the majority of cars sold in Malaysia, passenger vehicles sold in Malaysia are sub 100,000. Kalau EV bermula harga 60,000, adoption rate akan naik, no doubt. So majority of buyers yang mungkin sekarang beli Honda City, Toyota Vios tu, they will start looking at electric vehicles. Tapi masih lagi kena ada wujud lah kereta underneath that price point. If
So
there
you
are
think
EVs cheaper,
60,000 ni, how many percent yang akan lepas? How many percent of people are already buying cars at 60,000 or more? 60,000 is harga Myvi top lah kan, top spec Myvi lah kan.
Myvi paling mahal sekarang ni kat 58,000 tak silap.
Yelah, about
Kalau
60 lah, top spec lah.
about 60 plus you'll be looking at your Activa buyers, Proton Persona, thereabouts lah.
Yeah.
Rasanya ramai jugalah. Rasanya ramai
Yeah.
jugalah, tapi dia bergantung kepada infrastruktur. Kalau infrastruktur macam the earlier comment mention, selagi infra tak ada, selagi itulah orang takkan beli. Sebab kita as Malaysians, one of the things that we like to do is we like to travel. We drive a lot across the country. And for us local
But our country is very small.
betul. Tapi domestic tourism is a big factor for us. And selagi we are not able to comfortably cover about 250 to 300 kilometers without a charger, then it's going to be quite difficult lah. So harap-haraplah kita akan ada lebih di CFC tu, terutamanya dekat R&R, up and down the North South Highway, across the East Coast. Macam tak silap, Go To You has a charger now that goes all the way up to Kuala Terengganu, which is the first DCFC in Kuala Terengganu. That will hopefully make this a lot
Dah
easier
buka
for
Kuala Terengganu punya?
easier transition.
Kuala Terengganu dah buka lah?
I read that the other day.
Belum lagi kot. I don't think Kuala Terengganu dah ada. Dah buka lah? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, okay. So yeah. So I mean obviously the infrastructure needs to be there lah. Tapi yang ni kalau aku rasa dalam 40% of people can afford kot. 60,000
Oh, sorry,
and
correction.
above.
Pakar R&R. I meant Pakar R&R on the way to Terengganu.
Pakar dah
Sorry.
buka. Pakar dah buka.
Under
Itu
TNT
TNB
Electron.
punya elektron. Itu elektron.
Betul.
Elektron dah buka northbound. Okay. So yang ni memang to me 60,000 ni I think 40% of buyers dah boleh afford lah. At the very least lah. 60% of buyers. 60% lah aku rasa buyers boleh afford nak beli lah. And also aku tengok kat sini ni macam tadi yang aku cakap tadi, aku rasa because of the savings in terms of fuel, a lot of people akan try nak stretch ke sini. And because of the benefits lah. So I see that mungkin orang akan just save more untuk deposit tinggi sikit supaya dia boleh lepas lah. Especially kalau dia dah tengok neighbours pakai kan. Ni satu lagi ni. Orang tanya pasal road tax EV ni. So obviously right now EV road tax kosong. And one of the reason kenapa dia kosong is because the government nak fikir balik lah kan.
Betul.
Cuma sekarang ni persoalannya lah ialah what is a fair basis for taxation in the future?
Ada seseorang yang dia mention yang cukai jalan dekat Indonesia bergantung kepada harga kereta. So if I'm not mistaken, Indonesia punya road tax is based on it's 2% of the value of the vehicle. And I'm not sure kalau yang 2% tu bergantung kepada harga nilai kereta tu dia bersusut ke tidak lah. That is certainly one way to look at it lah. Akan tetapi 2% kalau nilai kereta mungkin akan jadi lebih mahal.
Again, tell me again macam mana how do you calculate on the basis of?
According to another motoring journalist I was talking to, who suggested that we should revise our road tax system to follow Indonesia. Indonesia's road tax system is 2% of the value of the car. And I'm not sure if that is 2% of the value at point of sale, or if it's 2% with a decreasing scale as the value of the vehicle decreases over a period lah. Di mana lagi lama kereta tu lagi murah lagi road tax dia. And that's certainly one way to look at it. Tetapi
why do you think that's a good way to look at it?
I didn't say it's a good way. I said it's one way to look at it. Sebab on one hand, masalah dengan EV sekarang ni is that a lot of very wealthy people are buying electric cars yang jual harga 300,000 and above, and they're not paying anything in taxes. That's not fair. That is ultimately
no. Given. I'm going to forgive them up to 2025 because the government wants to figure out how to tax.
Yes,
so let's
exactly.
not discuss that. I just want to ask you, what do you think is a good basis for calculating road tax?
The idea of pegging road tax to the value of the vehicle makes sense. It's just that there needs to be a mechanism to take into account depreciation. Nombor satu.
Why do you think that makes sense?
Sebab it will allow dia membolehkan kita untuk mengenakan cukai kepada orang yang betul-betul yang ada duit. The more you spend, the more you get taxed. Sebab dia tak masuk akal kalau
it's a consumption tax based on value lah of the vehicle.
Yes, a bit like your SST and GST lah. The more you consume, the more you get taxed.
Okay.
But that cannot apply. The thing is that kita masih perlu ada bracket lah untuk kita tax structure tu, sebab tak masuk akal kalau EV macam at the moment the Atto 3 tak silap based on the current road tax calculations about RM940, which is perfectly reasonable untuk kereta yang jual harga dia dekat 140, 180,000. But when you look at the Volvo XC40, di mana dia ada model T5 yang guna engine 1.5, that's RM90 per year. Lepas tu dia ada engine 2 liter where it's RM340 a year. Lepas tu tiba bila kita beli elektrik, suddenly dia punya projected road tax is RM4,500. That doesn't make sense. So dia punya harga the prices are about the same.
Do you know why it's at about 4,000?
Because it's based on output. It's if I recall correctly,
I know it's based on output, but the equivalency tu, did you see the equivalency or not?
Equivalency tu?
Okay dia. The equivalency dia, kenapa harga road tax tu ialah RM4,500? Kalau kau tengok balik, So the XC40 dia punya posted kilowatt is 300 kilowatt kan? So that's about 400 lebih sikit horsepower. 400 lebih sikit horsepower lah. So if you have an internal combustion engine that is normally aspirated, what engine capacity do you need to have to get that?
If within an AMG you can get them for about I think
No, no,
about
no, no,
the
non-turbo, and normally aspirated
kalau
engines.
kalau NA
Normally
you're looking at
aspirated
about
engines.
5 liters thereabouts.
That's why the road tax is that much. Because that's
Yeah,
equivalent to NA output. It's equivalent to NA output. That's how they calculated it. Equivalent to NA
betul.
output. So
Tetapi the
okay.
reason
So now the reason aku tanya kau the basis is because right now, because nama dia road tax, it says so on the tin. It says road tax. So the basis for calculating the road tax is based on the damage that you inflict on the road lah. Basically usage lah. Okay, so that's how the basis for it is that. That is why dia kira enjin tu kalau besar, chances are kereta tu berat and therefore it causes more damage to the road. And if it's a diesel, chances are it's going to be a commercial vehicle, it's going to pound the roads more. That's why you charge diesels more than petrol. So it's the basis for it is road usage. Okay, so kalau situ, should we stay on road usage or should we use a different basis for taxation?
rasanya kita kena berubah sebab the reason why electric vehicles are as powerful as they are is because higher powered motors are more efficient, especially when you're I think it was Volvo tak silap yang that came up with this data saying that electric vehicles are powerful not because everybody's talking about 0 to 100 times, tak, dia cuma sebab motor yang besar yang lebih berkuasa. It's the same basis as a big engine vehicle lah. Walaupun dia mungkin 5 liter 400 horsepower, you're not using 100% of that power all the time. And so the less
So the difference between big engine and big motor is actually quite different. I agree that when you say big motor, they're more efficient across a wider range of RPM. That is true. But for big engines, the reason why these luxury cars had big engines and why it is mostly concentrated in US, well, usually the Japanese never built cars with big engines.
betul.
They only build cars with big engines just to project power as a show. Or
Betul.
if those cars are meant for American market or Australian market. And the reason why you needed big engines in the markets like North America is because they orang punya distance jauh.
Betul.
And in the early days of the car industry, they didn't have the reliability. So in order for you to have reliability, you need to reduce engine speed.
Betul.
So you have bigger engines, lower engine speed, and it's not for efficiency, it's for reliability. Mostly
Betul.
it's for reliability. Whereas sekarang ni untuk EV is not for reliability anymore, it's for efficiency. So from that, I think there is already a kernel of an idea as to the change in terms of basis for road tax. I think it should be based on efficiency. I think it should be based on how many kilowatts do you use per kilometer.
Betul.
The lower it is, I will give you lower tax. Because right now, what is happening sebenarnya, transition yang kita tengah tengok ni is about transition towards a more energy efficient world. So the transition is about efficiency. We're about to have a lockstep change in terms of energy efficiency. Now, if you notice daripada kita zaman caveman, all the big steps that we enjoy, steps in technology, happens when we discover big increases in energy efficiency. It starts with fire. Fire allows us to cook food. When we cook food, then the body requires less energy to digest that food, to extract nutrient from it. So that in itself is actually a big gap, a big increase in terms of energy efficiency. The understanding of fire and all that. Then we understood how to increase the intensity of the heat. Instead of burning wood, we burn charcoal. With charcoal, we were able to achieve higher efficiency of energy. We were able to create more intense heat, and that allowed us to create metal tools, starting with copper, moving to bronze, moving to steel, iron, and then steel. Those all actually require just slightly higher levels of furnace temperature. Then once we've mastered steel, then we figured out how to then use the fire more. Because dah tak apa dah arang batu already lah. Then we figured out how to harness it through steam. Again, another lockstep in energy efficiency. The next lockstep in energy efficiency is twofold. First, we discovered electricity, but at about the same time, we also discovered oil. So there was a parallel. Untuk anything that is static, including homes, factories, offices, electricity. For everything that is mobile, kita pakai oil atau petrol or diesel, simply because we haven't figured out a way how to develop the bloody batteries and how to carry that energy, electrical energy, inside the cars. But now that we figured it out, even as we were developing those parallel oil and electricity, we always understood that electricity is far more efficient. So now that we figured out how to do the battery, this jump, if you don't make the jump, the country loses out. That's all there is to it. This is all about being selfish and reducing the cost of energy and increasing the efficiency and growing the economy. If you don't make the move, that's it. It's memang about selfish reason je sebenarnya nak pergi move to EV ni. Kalau kita tak make the move, then it's just our loss. And that's why for me, the new road tax should be based on efficiency rather than anything else lah.
Betul. And daripada segi tu, Malaysia has already made dah buat beberapa langkah in that direction lah. Macam Produa sekarang ni untuk kereta dia dah mula menggunakan Malaysian Driving Cycle MDC untuk calculation of fuel consumption. Bermaksud yang kita dah mempunyai a standard for calculation in terms of consumption. Jadi in that regard, that facility is already available. Jadi dia cuma perlu ditala sikit lagi untuk di-apply kepada road tax.
So ni Huzaifah, memang aku faham lah. Aku pun rasa macam tak puas hati juga tengok kan, dah lah kaya nak beli Porsche Taycan, lepas tu tak bayar road tax pula.
Cukai kereta tak bayar, road tax tak bayar. Tapi itulah dia, kita kena pandang balik.
But the thing is that Huzaifah, benda ni kita dalam period perubahan, dalam tempoh perubahan, dan pihak kerajaan mengaku sebenarnya dia tak tahu nak kira macam mana road tax tu. Kita tadi baru je sembang, the basis for calculating road tax sekarang is based on equivalent NA, normally aspirated punya engine output, which is memang on the face of it dah kira tak fair, sebab engine NA pun dah makin berkurangan, orang dah pakai banyak turbo dah. So the calculation tu dah tak masuk akal dah. Kalau nak kira ikut equivalency turbo, mungkin even more suitable. But at the end of the day, kita sekarang tengah fikirkan cara baru lah. So kalau Huzaifah rasa tak setuju dengan cara kiraan road tax, inilah masanya untuk kita semualah take the effort untuk contact kita punya wakil rakyat, kita beritahu dia yang kita tak setuju benda ni. Kita setuju cara macam mana, beritahu kat dia. Pasal jangan cakap tak setuju, tak bagi penyelesaian. Kita kena jadi aktivis. Sekarang ni kita tak boleh jadi orang komplain je, kita kena jadi aktivis. Kita kena beritahu kenapa dan apa penyelesaian dia.
Betul. Tapi kita juga kena faham yang sekarang ni kenapa road tax dikosongkan dan kenapa sales tax apa semua dah dikosongkan untuk kereta EV, untuk kita mahal lah, kereta canggih macam ni. Adalah sebab kita perlu menggerakkan pembeli yang berduit ni kepada teknologi baru supaya mereka lah menjadi first adopter yang menerajui facility dan infrastruktur yang diperlukan, supaya nanti bila EV dah jadi murah, bila dah ada EV yang lebih mampu milik, bila kita dah mampu milik EV tu, infrastruktur dah ada. That's just how that works. Sebab ultimately bila kita cakap pasal teknologi baru, macam even kita cakap pasal phone pun, zaman dulu RM5,000, RM6,000 dapatlah beli Motorola Atau yang mungkin dia punya bateri tahan 30 minit aja. But that was the reality of technology pada masa itu, di mana majority orang tak mempunyai telefon bimbit. Tapi sekarang kita dah ada telefon pintar where again you can buy a smartphone now for RM700. This is just a growing pain.
Dan aspek yang kita lupa ialah, kalau kita tengok atur tu pun zaman telefon bimbit besar bag tu, dalam kau bayar sampai berbelah-belah ribu. Line dia punya sampah hanya kalau sekarang kau buang telefon tu. Kan? Kau bercakap tak dengar, line putus-putus. So as technology progresses, daripada 11,000 boleh simpan 10 number dalam telefon, bangga tak sudah tunjuk kat orang, boleh simpan 10 number. And moving to small ones yang harga 5,000, still boleh simpan 100 number, bangga tunjuk kat orang. Sekarang kita boleh beli telefon yang aku cakap betul terus terang pada tahun 2005 lah, for example lah, masa aku masih lagi pakai baru nak transition pergi ke smartphone, masa tu dapat iPhone 1. iPhone 1 tahun berapa? 2007 kan? Aku tak ingat
Exactly.
tahun berapa. Whatever lah, the year lah dia, benda tu dah sampai tu. Kita tak boleh tengok YouTube pun lagi kat atas telefon tu. Nak tengok YouTube dulu, first kali YouTube punya limit was what? 15 minit kot paling panjang. But before that was 5 minutes video paling panjang. So kalau kata kau nak tengok satu episode whatever yang kat dalam YouTube, the episode tu first kali dah pecah into 5 minute intervals. And this is how kita tengok YouTube tau. Ni I'm talking about not even on the cell phone. This is on a office computer, on a home computer. So for example katalah aku nak tengok Top Gear. Top Gear 30 minit. So aku kena download part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sekali sederap. Okay? And then I will go make coffee, make tea, make biskut, datang balik, tengok episod 1, sementara episod 2 download.
Betul.
Habis episod 1, tutup, buka episod 2 pula part 1. Pergi buka tengok episod 1, part 2 pula 5 minit, 5 minit. Macam tu. Dia punya slow punya line internet tu. Dan sekarang ni kita sampai satu tahap di mana data tu dah free. Within the span of 15 years, this is technology lah. So masa sekarang ni Huzaifah, memang kalau kau beli pun kau sakit hati aku rasa. Macam Aiman cakap lah, beli dah lah mahal. Sekarang bateri tu tak tahan lama. 8 tahun je, 10 tahun je. By the time kita yang akan nak mampu beli kereta, bila harga kereta tu dah turun berlambak dah at 50-60,000, that is bila kereta tu dah memang bersedia untuk the mass market. Mass market ni dia memang tak boleh teknologi yang mangkang je. Teknologi kalau mangkang lagi tak berapa cukup masak, tak nak boleh. Nanti dia punya maki hamun, komplain dia rabak. Lepas nanti semua tak boleh tahan, nak dengar muka hampa komplain. Sebab yang sekarang ni, bila teknologi tu belum matang lagi, geng-geng early adopters ni, mereka ni eco warrior, mereka ni teknologi warrior. Mereka sanggup masuk dan sanggup menderita semata-mata untuk ada status mempunyai teknologi terbaru. So Huzaifah kena faham benda tu. That is why you give them ni untuk diorang jadi early adopters, and diorang akan bayar, pay for the development of the infrastructure. Kita kena tolong diorang sikit lah, tolak diorang sikit. Dan bila diorang jimatkan, katalah contoh ni yang tengok satu kereta akan jimat RM4,000 setahun in terms of fuel subsidy. Jadi kalau ada 2,500 kereta, 10 juta jimat. Jadi duit 10 juta tu memang nampak macam sikit lah, tapi nanti dia berkampoi, tambah-tambah. Yang itulah akan mengurangkan kita punya subsidi minyak, dan duit tu nanti boleh buat benda lain. Tapi kita tak boleh nak beli dulu pasal teknologi tu masih lagi tak cukup masak. So mereka lah kena beli dulu. That is why dia macam tu lah cerita dia. Aku pun tak puas hati juga, tapi nak buat macam mana. Teknologi tak ready, infrastructure tak ready, kita tak boleh beli lagi.
Jadi bagi untuk kita tu, bagi menyedapkan hati, kita cakap macam ni lah, biarlah orang kaya tu susah. Kan?
Betul.
Kita yang susah ni tak perlu kesusahan yang lebih. Tak apa, biar je.
Alright. Okay, so I think kita boleh wrap up kot, dah 2 jam. Anything in closing remarks, Aiman, you want to say?
I have a feeling yang tahun ni akan jadi very exciting untuk tengok daripada segi development of EVs lah, terutamanya beberapa jenama yang akan bawa masuk model yang lebih berapa milik, dan juga beberapa jenama yang akan sampai buat pertama kalinya to our market dengan model-model baru, hopefully dengan insentif yang sepatutnya. Kita masih lagi kena berpegang harapan kepada bajet 2023 yang akan dibentangkan bulan depan. Harap-harap ada insentif yang sepatutnya dan insentif yang lebih cerdik lah. Bukan setakat untuk kereta, tapi juga untuk insentif infrastructure juga. So hopefully this year will be a very interesting year for electric vehicles, dan kita harap yang dia akan menjadi ada insentif juga untuk lebih pemasangan tempatan lah untuk EVs, supaya kami kekal relevan dalam the global vendor chain lah.
You punya anggaran tahun ni berapa biji boleh jual?
Anywhere between 3 to 5,000 lah tahun ni rasanya. Sebab
Okay. So your upper limit is 5,000?
Upper limit is about 5,000. Sebab sekarang ni ada dua masalah. One, primarily the issue now is supply. Sebab majority partner kita yang kita bincangkan, kalau cakap pasal EV, majority of them are saying yang kita tak boleh dapat supply daripada factory, dan selagi kita tak ada pemasangan tempatan, that's going to continue to be a problem.
Why you care so much about those bloody Europeans?
It's not the Europeans. Tapi kalau kita cakap pasal the brands available locally,
siapa yang ada masalah bekalan ni?
Some of them I'm not going to say. Tapi the major issue now is bukan pasal demand, cuma supply sekarang ada masalah. So
But the Chinese can supply 10,000 anytime
Yeah, but the Chinese are the Chinese, itu lain. Kalau dia orang mati dalam factory, ada 10 lagi orang keluar boleh ambil. So
But the reality is that they can supply 10,000 cars from one brand if they just wanted to.
yes, correct. Tapi kita tengoklah macam mana. At the moment, the demand for Chinese vehicles, sebab the offering daripada Aura, daripada BYD sekarang ni agak limited, dan mungkin ada pembeli yang mungkin tak berminat dengan produk-produk macam tu. So there are still going to be macam premium car buyers yang mencari kereta yang lebih plush, yang lebih premium, yang rasa lebih gah tu. They're not going to be very interested in the Chinese vehicles because at the moment they do still feel a bit cheap. So kita akan tengoklah perkembangan macam mana, hopefully within this year. And also the new models coming in should be a pretty good incentive for people to change their buying habits. Kita tengoklah.
Right. Okay, sama-sama Huzaifah. And then ni last sekali, smart number 1. #1. Apa cerita?
Q4 2023 itu adalah kata putus daripada Proton Edar tahun lepas. Harap-harap tak ada kapal yang terkaram ke apa ke. Tengoklah macam mana.
So to me, this is an interesting product yang memang this is design from the ground up kan to be EV. And premium small car.
An interesting point to ponder adalah ada beberapa pengedar Proton di sekitar Peninsula Malaysia yang dah mula memasang charger elektrik di premis mereka. Jadi ini mungkin satu indikasi yang smart #1 ni akan dijual mungkin di fasiliti yang sama atau berdekat-dekatan. Dan hopefully if it's given that it's under Proton Edar, mungkin dia akan jadi murah sikit lah, harap-harap lah. Kalau tidak,
dia hari tu kita pergi ke Ipoh, dekat lah dengan Tian Siang tu, sebelah Lexus tu ada satu Proton punya dealer nama DK. DK is also a big Honda dealer lah. And DK akan jadi site partner dengan Proton New Energy Ventures, which is basically the importer and distributor untuk smart. And Proton New Energy apparently dah tie up. Ini dia orang beritahu lah, kita pergi jenguk tu, dia kata dia orang dah tie up dengan Jentari nak pasang charger dekat depan tu. So like you say lah, kemungkinan besar dia orang ni yang dah pasang-pasang charger ni akan jadi either dealer smart ataupun ada lakal dia tu kan lah, apa yang dia nak buat tu. So
tapi kita menaruh harapan lah, harap-harap smart #1 ni dia akan
kau tengok kawan kita Rusli kata 35,000 EV tahun ni. Itu meletup, aku pun tak boleh cakap.
Kalau 35,000 EV di Malaysia tahun ni bermaksud Thailand, Vietnam, Singapura dan mungkin Indonesia tak dapat EV langsung. Semua sampai kali ni.
Tak. Aku kalau tengok supply from China 35,000 is very very possible.
Tapi supply from China, Aura sekarang ni pun macam tak berapa banyak. BYD is the only proper player lah dengan 1,000 kereta already on the way. Tapi at the moment BYD hanya ada satu model. Jadi mungkin dengan BYD Dolphin yang akan dilancarkan pertengahan tahun ni mungkin akan ada perbezaan. Tapi BYD Seal mungkin tak akan buat perbezaan besar sangat sebab anggarannya adalah model premium dengan harga yang agak keras lah.
Keras pun 200 lah kot kan. It wouldn't be so like, I don't think it will go too high, for the simple reason Tesla dah start slash harga dia.
Berdasarkan perbincangan dengan beberapa orang dekat Saindabi, mungkin mahal lagi.
Berapa? How much?
I cannot say, tapi mungkin 300? Mahal lagi.
Realitinya bila Tesla slash dia punya harga and Thailand already getting the new Tesla prices even the Pekema members yang jual Tesla is likely going to have to slash their punya prices lah. So if Tesla starts to dip below 300,000, because right now even the standard range Hong Kong would be about 290. So kalau everything starts to drop, let's say a few variant lah, let's say standard range and maybe long range and not performance long range drop below 300,000, then it's a lot less room lah untuk Saimdabi nak decide on their own mana dia nak letak harga seal tu. And I think BYD China also will readjust dia orang punya seal pricing globally to compete with that new price reality lah. And the way that I see it, Tesla, because on the Q4 punya earnings call, dia orang tanya with the price reduction, what will be your margin, operating margin? It will still be 20%. So they're still looking at 20% operating margin. And I think that is based on the fact that they have achieved so much efficiency in their factories by using the mega casting and giga casting tu. And their cost, and also because the Model 3 sebenarnya dah masuk 5 tahun. It's already almost the 5th year, and therefore kalau you look at how car companies work, dia orang punya costing ataupun amortization of their R&D, dia dah habis amortize dia orang punya Model 3 tu. And therefore there's a sudden drop in dia orang punya book cost for the Model 3. So this is, I think, why they are able to drop their price and still maintain 20% margin, because their models tend to have long life. That thing's going to run for another 5 years, and there is minimal amortization dah. Everything that's happening beyond this is all mostly software updates and minor component changes. So Tesla will continue to put pressure on price, because they nak capture a much bigger share of the market, because they have new factories. Right now, Shanghai can do 1.2. Berlin and Austin is expected to hit at 500,000 lah. So that means they had the 2.2 plus Fremont is about 700,000. So they have 3 million production capacity. And the target for this year is only 1.8. So they will have a lot of room. I don't think they want to run their factory at that low efficiency, because their model is Shanghai, and Shanghai runs at almost over 90% efficiency. Capacity, what I mean is 90% capacity. So they will want all their factories to run at least at that capacity. And if the ramp up in Shanghai is to be believed, then in 2024, both Berlin and Austin will be able to hit around 750,000 cars. So which means they will continue to put pressure, because they need to take up slack in their production capabilities. And this is why I think that all these other EV brands, their pricing, they are now very critical lah. They're at a very critical juncture, because if they don't start to move properly into EV punya mode full in terms of their punya design and supply chain, memang it's going to be very, very tough for them. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? Tak ada? Okay, thank you very much. Hari ni 2 jam, brother. Oh. Thank you so much, Aiman, for spending 2 hours with us.
Tak ada masalah.
Apa dia?
Tak ada masalah at all. EVs,
Okay.
EVs are an area I'm very passionate about. Jadi kalau kita dapat kongsi a little bit more information dengan lebih ramai orang, seronok lah kita semua kan.
Ya, betul. So, thank you kawan-kawan. So, bab road tax ni, memang saya nak buat satu episod specifically untuk nak tanya, because sebelum ni kita dah pernah tanya kat kawan-kawan juga, apa basis untuk taxation moving forward. Kawan-kawan tolong kongsikan, because kadang-kadang kita tak tahu siapa yang datang tengok. Kadang-kadang channel saya ni pelik sikit. Memang views mungkin tak apa ramai, tapi yang datang tengok tu mungkin dia ada upaya lah untuk melakukan sesuatu. So kalau you ada idea tentang macam mana, what's the basis for taxation untuk EV moving forward, memang kerajaan tengah cari idea untuk macam mana nak mengenakan cukai yang kena masuk akal lah. It has to make sense, and you must be able to explain lah kenapa basis kita pilih macam tu, which right now kita punya basis is road usage, which I think is antiquated lah. So macam mana kita nak do, whether we nak do a flat rate ke ataupun kita nak buat macam mana ke, aku tak tahu. But somebody memang kena kita semualah kena tolong bantu bagi idea supaya pihak Road Transport Department ataupun JPJ dan MITI ke dan siapa-siapa lagi, Ministry of Finance, boleh nampak kita punya basis tu and it makes sense and it doesn't result in too much of a drop lah in terms of dia orang punya revenue. Then it will be quite okay lah. So basically kita nak fikirkan macam mana kita nak maintain road tax yang sama dengan kadar yang sekarang, tapi work on a basis that makes more sense moving forward to the future. Ya? Okay. Apapun, tolong saya sikit. Kita nak cuba capai 100,000. Aku dah setahun lebih tak capai lagi 100,000 daripada 80 lebih. Hampa ni semua tak mau tolong aku. Tekan bila butang subscribe tu, butang loceng, kongsi kat kawan-kawan, tekan butang like banyak-banyak. Dan kalau boleh tekan butang like awal sikit lah. Mereka suka, YouTube suka macam tu. Pemandu Malaysia pun yang berhemah, hampa doa aku ada rezeki, ada umur panjang nak jumpa hampa lagi sekali. Kita jumpa lagi.